gonna name that rejection is a part of this process. Now, listen to what I'm saying here. Rejection is painful. Rejection is not always bad. It's not the same. Rejection can often be painful, but rejection is not always a bad thing. Hey everyone, my name is Bernice, for those of you guys who don't know me, and I am an emergency medicine resident physician, and I am doing this video today to reflect on the process of getting to where I am today. It was just a really short year ago, a short eventful year. 2020 has been something else. But just a short year ago that I was applying to residency, and here I am. I'm literally training at my dream residency program. I could not be at a place that matches me better at this moment, and so I am thrilled to be where I am today. And I remember, even though I am where I am now, I remember what it felt like to be on the other side of this, to feel so much anxiety and nervousness whenever I was applying to residency. And so I kind of just want to help you guys who are going through this process, or for people who have loved ones who are going through this process, or who are just curious about this process. I just want to highlight a few of the things that are critically important to keep in mind as you're applying. The timing of this video is especially significant because I know that this is the week for this particular cycle that the ERAS, which is the residency application system, is due. And so a lot of you guys have either just submitted or are submitting your residency applications right now. And I know that this time it's full of so much uncertainty and you have a really long interview season ahead of you, but I believe in you guys and I just want to give you some of my insights. I want you, before anything else, to be extremely proud of getting to this point. To be in a position to apply for residency means that you went through your undergraduate studies, you got into medical school, which is extraordinarily difficult as we're seeing year after year. You made it through medical school, which is also extraordinarily difficult. And now you're at the point of furthering your training. This is a marathon. Medicine is a marathon. And so I'm proud of you for getting to this point. So many people struggle to get to this point. So take a moment and just take stock in that. And look over your application. You know, the ERAS application is really comprehensive. It has your personal statement. It also has the section where you talk about your activities, leadership, research, XYZ, all of the different things that you've been doing while you've been in med school, while you've been in college, and maybe if you took time off, all of those things. And so inevitably, you've done more than you might have even anticipated in this period of time. And so take a moment to appreciate that you've got to this point and to be proud of yourself. And then once you've really reflected on your journey, be careful of the pitfall of comparison. And I think I should have told myself this even more times than I did, is that comparison, listen to me, comparison is the thief of your joy. It is the thief of your peace. It is a thief. Do not compare yourself. This is going to be nearly impossible to do because the nature of medicine is you're trying to figure out which people got interviewed where and what people got scores that are better than me and who has more research on their CV, etc., etc. Listen, it is really, really not going to serve you at all to compare yourself. It's extremely difficult not to, but when you sit and you compare yourself and you make yourself feel lesser than, and you make yourself feel as though, oh, someone else's path or journey is more anointed than mine or more set up than me, or whatever it is that you will be tempted to feel, it's just going to take away from your confidence and it's going to drive you off of your path of your own journey. When you find yourself in those moments, take a second And just remember that you don't know everything that other people are going through. Do your best to be super introspective for yourself and focus on your own journey and your own path. Don't allow yourself to succumb to inferiority complexes or feel as though you need to be doing what other people are doing, because everybody has their own needs at this phase in their life and their own desires. And so find out what those are for you and focus on you. The unfortunate thing, and one of my gripes about medical school, is that there is so much emphasis on ranking us and putting our worth wrapped up in numbers and all of these types of things. You do not equal your numbers. You don't equal your scores. Your worth is not wrapped into those things. I'm saying that. I know that it is going to take a second for you to receive that, because medical school basically teaches you otherwise. But I'm telling you that having gone through this interview trail, the numbers really did not actually come up nearly as much as I thought that they would. I don't want to lie to people. I do think that numbers are used a lot of times as screening tools to determine like people over whatever threshold are going to get interviews. It's not always 100%, and if it's a place that you really feel called to and you really do think that you would contribute to that community, it is okay to reach out to the program coordinators, obviously very respectfully, the program directors, and just say, hey, I am really, really passionate about XYZ. I really do think I would be a great contributor to your program. And if there is a really compelling case that maybe isn't reflected in your file, you can surpass what those numbers might indicate. Number two, step one as a score is literally going away soon. And so I'm anticipating, this is my guess, that the historical practice of using step one as something that really weeds people out and cuts people away and gives them and stops people from having chances of going into certain programs is going to diminish significantly, because programs need to start thinking about other ways of determining who's a good match for their program. And then lastly, once you get in the door and once you're interviewing, it's really not about how many questions you got right about the Krebs cycle or whatever the case. At that point, they're really looking for people who are going to be passionate, who are going to be hard workers, who are really committed to progressing in their training. And being an excellent doctor and being an excellent test taker are not the same thing, even though they're oftentimes conflated. So just believe that you still have what it takes, no matter what your test scores show, to be a phenomenal doctor if you're coming in with the right attitude. When you're applying to programs, I really think that it helps to apply to a broad slate of programs. Obviously, there's going to be certain circumstances where people have geographical ties, or they have things going on in their personal life. Maybe they have kids, they have something that is tying them really specifically to a place. And if you're in that situation, then you know that for yourself. But a lot of times people just like to stay with what's familiar. But I know for me, when I was applying, I applied to a really broad array of programs all across the country, including places I had never lived or had not really considered living strongly. And surprisingly, I went to those places and I surprised myself. I really liked those programs. I really was like, I could see myself taking a leap of faith and maybe even moving here because I feel so called to this program, or I feel called to the mission. And so sometimes you'd be surprised. And so it's hard for you to know whether or not that's going to be your case if you don't even put them on your list as possibilities. I know that this particular year, given that interviews are virtual, it's even harder to see cities, especially cities that you're not already familiar with. You'll be able to determine whether or not you want to take that plunge. But all I'm saying is give yourself that chance and open up your possibilities. When it comes time to start your interview season, it's gonna be so important that before you get there, you've done a lot of reflection on what is exactly is motivating you, what excites you, what makes you feel impassioned, and all of these types of things. And because when the interviewer is asking you questions and trying to figure out, how did you get to this point? How did you decide what field you want to go into? How did you decide medicine, and what kind of doctor do you see yourself being? it is obvious when somebody has really thought through those questions and thought through those things for themselves. And I'm sure most of you have, even just the practice of writing a personal statement forces you to. But I would take it a step further and start trying to verbalize it. Because sometimes we know in ourselves what makes us excited, but trying to literally verbalize it can be difficult, but that's exactly what you're going to be expected to do on these interviews. So practice with friends, family, loved ones, people who really know you and know what is important to you, know the type of person that you are, and talk it through with them. There's some really common questions, and if you guys are interested, let me know. I can do like a quick video about what are good ways to prepare for interviews and how to be a strong interviewee and interviewer. But just doing basic questions like, why this program, why this position, why this city, why this specialty, like all of these type of who are you, what keeps you up at night, like questions like that kind of paint a picture of what is it that you are about, is good to practice in this time period once you submit and you're awaiting the interview season. Now, this process, like I talked about earlier, it's an emotional roller coaster, and sometimes you have a vision for yourself and maybe that vision isn't what manifests. And I'm gonna name that rejection is a part of this process. Rejection is often extremely painful. Like, I promise you guys, I know that feeling personally. Rejection is extremely painful. Now, listen to what I'm saying here. Rejection is painful. Rejection is not always bad. It's not the same. Rejection can often be painful, but rejection is not always a bad thing. Why is that? Especially in the context of residency applications. Sometimes there is a reason that a door has closed, even though you want it to have stayed open. And that might be a reflection of maybe something in program leadership or in the program's culture, or something is not meshing with the things that you want to do. For example, in my case, I've talked about this a lot. I have a master's in public policy. I'm very interested in health policy and doing health policy work as a part of my career. I came into medicine knowing that there are programs that didn't even offer me an interview, I literally was rejected very early. And I remember at first being like, wow, that's like really hurtful. Why am I not being considered? But then as I talked to people who were more familiar with that program, they were like, that place is really not gonna be a place that's fostering your interests. And they probably could just see that from your application and knew it was not gonna be a good fit, right? And that's one reason. Maybe it was another reason. Maybe sometimes it's because of scores. Sometimes it's because it could be for a lot of reasons. And so you're not always gonna have a very clean cut answer as to why. But I just want to elucidate to you that not every program is for you. And sometimes you're gonna be the one to recognize that. And sometimes it's gonna be the program that recognizes it. But this process is called match. So you can find a place that matches you and allows you to grow and flourish at this phase in your career. And that leads me very smoothly to my last point, which is this process is a two-way street. I think a lot of times up until this point in medicine, we have really thought about kind of how do we make ourselves stand out? How do we impress, the gatekeepers, and how do we make XYZ happen for us? But this you are going for your first medical job, effectively, your first physician job. And so just like you are trying to find a program and you're trying to stand out, the programs too are trying to stand out and recruit you. I promise you, on this side, I can tell you that we too are, how can we make ourselves stand out to applicants the same way that applicants are like, how can we make ourselves stand out to programs? This is a two-way street. What does that mean? It means that when you go on interviews, avoid the temptation to get super locked into, I'm super great because of, and I'm great because of. It's not all about how can I shine. Really get into the nitty-gritty of what does your program offer in terms of mentorship? what does your program offer in terms of professional development? What does your program offer in terms of clinical opportunities to become more proficient at whatever these interests are? And it's gonna be so important for you to start to parse those things out early in the process, because ultimately it is you as the applicant who makes the decision. You know, the algorithm has been shown to favor applicants over programs whenever we make our lists and whenever we're making our choices. Our choice is more favored than what the program's choice is. The algorithm is really complicated. I can put a link down below to the NMRP website, kind of breaking down how the match algorithm works. But basically, the most important thing to know is that do not fall into the trap of not being discerning on your end of the table. You have to have questions. You have to doubt things, you have to question things, you have to interrogate things and really find out, is this place going to serve me? I know that I'm gonna bring a lot to the table. Is this place gonna bring a lot to the table for me and for my own development? Okay? This is such an exciting time. For anyone who is watching this and has recently submitted their own ERAS application, knows someone who is, loves someone who is, or is just curious about what it takes, what these steps are for doctors, I'm telling you, this is one of the most consequential and kind of like biggest deal parts of our training. But at the same time, it's not the end of the world. This ultimately is going to determine the next few years, but then we still have the rest of our careers ahead of us. So just think about how much there is to come. I'm super excited for you guys. Please let me know what you think of this video below. What questions do you have? Are there more things that you would like me to address, especially about this process? I know it can be a really difficult one, and it can be especially difficult for people who maybe don't know many people who have gone through it, because it is a really unique process. Comment down below any questions you have, and I'll try to keep up with the comments and respond to any questions that you guys have. Definitely follow me on my socials, Instagram, Twitter. I'm really active on there, just sharing my experience as a resident and the steps that it took for me to get here. And then of course, subscribe to this channel. This community is growing and thriving. I'm actually so excited to see so many new faces engaging here, and I am looking forward to much more in the future. So I'm signing out just for now, but there is a lot to come here in this community. Thank you so much for stopping by. Bye for now. Mwah. Hey everyone, it's Bernice. For those of you who guys